Welcome to Getting Real with Josh Boyer, the show that embraces radical vulnerability and authenticity. Josh creates a judgment-free zone for his guests to share openly and candidly. Listen in as they discuss life, philosophy, passion, drive, empowerment, and purpose. Join us as we seek to leave our world better than we found it and send ripples of positive, lasting change out into the world.
Yes, we are here. It's not going to be the My Backstory podcast anymore. It's Getting Real.
I'm the first one.
You are the first
new
one.
brand.
Yeah.
Boom.
Getting Real.
I love it.
With Josh Boyer and Dr. Tommy John.
Let's get real.
Dude, I'm super pumped to be here. For those of you that don't watch baseball or have been living under a rock for the last 20 years, now Dr. Tommy John is the son of Tommy John, which the Tommy John surgery is named after, correct?
Yes.
And so I'm super fascinated. We talked offline, and usually the way the podcast works is I come into a new location with a new person I've never met before, and we just get cranking on the podcast. I don't really spend too much time talking to anybody like before the podcast. And so we were talking right now, and I was like, hey, like, what time is it? We talked for 2 hours.
2 hours, man.
And we were like going deep. So hopefully this podcast will be just as deep on the issues that we were discussing. So I want you to share your story with everyone, man. And kind of we can go from there and see like what rabbit holes we go down.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, brother.
All right. So what's brought me to this point in my life and what I'm doing with people and my purpose and my mission and my mantra? I was exposed to so many things. Like everything's just a part of the bigger plan, right? Like everything's a part of making us who we are, and we have choices to respond to those things. So every life event that's led to this, like I was cruising in baseball, doing well. I was starting to realize in high school that if you worked really hard for things, you could attain things. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there was, it wasn't, because you got to understand too, I had to be very aware of, did my dad do that for me or did I do that for me? Do you know what I mean? And that was it. Not because he did anything. He would never, ever, maybe a foot in the door. But once in the door, I got to represent or I'm going to look like a complete douchebag. You know, everyone's like, oh, you got what you got because of your dad. And they're like, well, I still had to be good. So if he got me an opportunity, that's fine. Yep. But I achieved some things in high school that were accolades that, you know, I had to look back like there was no way he could have gotten me that. I earned that. Okay, good. Now we go to college, and I'm checking off these goals, and I'm starting to attain them, having this focused drive at 18, 19 years old that was of a 30 or 31-year-old, only because I observed one of the best to ever play baseball for 26 seasons, what he did daily, and that was like our as a family, anything we would do, if we threw a party, it was like as grandiose a party as you get. We put everything into it. Do you know what I mean? So like regardless of what it was, go all in. Like no matter what it is. If you're gonna bowl your ass off.
Was your dad like present for a lot of those like accolades? Was he like the dad that was like super involved, or was he a dad that like really wasn't too down for like what you're doing?
So he did it exactly how it should be done and how the research is showing even today with these youth sports injuries. He wasn't pressing until I was 17 years old. Like he as a kid, I couldn't get him to play catch with me. I had to ask him a number of times, you know, and it was just one of those things. You want to go? Sure. You ready to go? Yeah, Dad, can we play catch? Yeah, you ready to go? Like he would just keep, and then we'd play catch and he'd call it. And then, but I was supposed to be out with my friends. I was supposed to be out exploring other sports in a non-organized, non-stressful environment. They never asked who won or lost, or did you play, or that coach sucked, or he's an asshole. You're better than those people. We're going to move town like it is now, where it's parents playing off each other and putting their identity on through their kid. He didn't until I got good in high school, and that's when he started to offer up suggestions. Hey, why don't you go hit today? As I'm sitting down with a bacon sandwich and a Mountain Dew and like a string of episodes of Saved by the Bell. Like I don't want to do that. I want to eat my bacon sandwich. And he just totally threw a wrinkle in. Well, now me knowing what my goals were, like that bacon sandwich didn't taste good anymore. Yeah. Because I knew I wasn't I could have eaten it and then just gone afterwards, which is what I would do. But sometimes I just, he'd just plant the seed.
Yeah, it wasn't in alignment with your biggest goals. Yeah.
Not even, you know what I mean? And I just started to realize that on my own. And that's the great part of what he did, whether he was conscious of that or not. But that's how he was raised too. It wasn't this big overbearing. It was like, oh, you love this thing? All right. Are you doing stuff to put yourself in the best position to love it? Like to go after it?
Yeah.
All right. What do you think about that? Maybe you should go hit. And then you leave the room. And then I'd sit there and it would be my own inner playing off that, like, he's right. I should be hitting. This is lazy. Like this bacon sandwich and Saved by the Bell is not conducive to what my goals were. I'm going to go hit while there's daylight.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go throw while there's daylight. Or I'm going to go do something to get better, right?
Totally.
And so that was, I carried it through till college. Now everything's lining up. I'm at a school that's supporting me playing middle infield and pitching and my growth, and it's a good school, and I got good teammates and friends, and it's just amazing. Good coaches. And then I had a little bit of shoulder soreness in a summer ball after my freshman year. Summer ball baseball, you're a scholarship athlete on somebody else's team with all these other scholarship athletes around the nation. So they have to protect you because you belong to a school, really. And so if there's any kind of something off, they'll make sure that it's taken care of or checked at least to cover their asses. And it's just the way it is. Well, I mentioned, I'm like, my shoulder's kind of achy. So I go get an MRI, and they inject dye into the socket. Yep. And that dye got infected. I got a deep staph infection in the socket of my shoulder. Now, it'd be one thing if the MRI showed something that was actually worth imaging, and it wasn't. It was tendonitis and normal wear and tear. All right, like those are very easy to achieve, remedy. And I just got 104-degree fever. I was vomiting. The pain was so bad. My host mom was like, "You're sick. Oh my God." Took me to her GP, her general practitioner, which is John Madden's brother, actually.
Oh, wow.
And he's just like, "Tommy John." I mean, he's just this big commanding figure. And he looks at me. He's like, "Oh, you don't look good." Takes me into this room, draws fluid out of my shoulder. And it was the color of, it was deep yellow. Like, and that's, okay, call your parents. You're going into emergency surgery right now. And I'm like, what? And they flushed it all out. I was on IV antibiotics because it's life-threatening.
Yeah,
a
totally.
deep socket infection, that's every doctor's worst nightmare. I mean, you sign off stuff on arthrograms to show that you're not going to sue if that happens because it's a good possibility it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so from that moment, carpet ripped out from under me. As I'm healing in the hospital, I've got a tube sucking out fluid. I'm in the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, physical pain I've ever felt in my life, an infection in the middle of your body.
Yeah.
Like, it's just painful. I got teammates visiting me and everything else, and I get a call from the Cape Cod League, which is a league that showcases the best players in the nation, college players in the nation. That was one of my goals. Yep. They had called because they had a place open, and they were just calling to ask me to come over and pitch for them. And I'm like, sitting in a hospital, having done all these things to lead up to this point right here, and I can't do it. I can't fulfill. And I'll never forget that feeling, because I'm sitting there and I looked at my feet and I looked at my surroundings, and I'm like, well, if the Cape Cod called me now, they'll call again. And I'll be fucking goddamned if I'm going to let this stop me. And that was just I wasn't going to let it stop me before, but when the Cape calls you and you're sick in the hospital on something you didn't do, that was something that bothered me. It was the powerless feeling. And you and I shared a lot about that, like, we're power stripped, man. Like, shit. Like, there's stuff you can't control, but we can control how we respond to it. Let's go. Here's how I'm going to get this, because it's preparing me for something greater, right? We went into that quite a bit. So I got to see therapies and rehab and what that was like, because, again, if I could stress, people who think that they're preparing for whatever they're preparing for, when you're injured, the amount of preparation and the stimulus level that you have to consistently go through, emotionally, intellectually, physically injured, has to be so much higher. Like, I just don't think people have a grasp or a concept of how much they have to take on and how much work is needed when we're injured, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? Yep. And that was one of those realizations. I'm like, oh my God, I thought I worked hard, which I did. I worked harder than everybody. This is a whole nother level. I loved it because I was like, oh, hell yeah, let's go.
No challenge.
Totally, right? And that was my personality, and that's just how we were raised. And so I got to see rehab. came back, finished college, got a bachelor's, I got a master's in health and exercise science. So I'm kind of obsessed with the body, and I'm learning that I love the body and all things the body. Like I would get goosebumps reading about the power that is our physiology and our nervous system. And it's not mechanistic, right? I wasn't looking about an arm or a system, but it was the whole concept. I was just blown away by what the capacity was. And then in my head too, that's only what they're measuring right now. They have no idea. And that was me at 20. Yeah. This is a textbook. Like, wait for it, because they're going to keep finding stuff, because you just can't measure the capacity of the human being. It's just not going to happen, right? And so I played a couple years of pro ball after that, and then it wasn't fun anymore. I retired. I got into this field of performance training, sports performance training and rehabilitation, and I was with two gentlemen in Illinois, and we were pulling apart injuries and honoring and acknowledging that each injury was different, even though the diagnosis was the same. Each individual carried their own circumstances that led to that point right there, and they all had to be treated differently. There was no protocol. Protocols are bullshit. Yep. Like, it can't be. There's guidelines for you to work within and shape, but absolutely not could everybody be treated like a shoulder, like a Parkinson's, like a whatever they call you.
Did you get like any pushback from like Western medicine and stuff like that because of that? Because that doesn't seem like that's like the accepted idea in Western medicine. You know, it's like, here's the textbook answer. This is what you do. These are the steps you take. And it's like, it seems like counterintuitive, you know?
So that's exactly what it was. And that's the thing. The commercials, the majority, everything out there is saying the opposite of what we were saying.
Yeah.
And we were even discovering on our own, because I was a part of that. I was like, wait, what is this? And we're going into the literature and we're testing on ourselves, and we're like, we had it all wrong. Wait. And then you come to find out, if you go back far enough, this was just the way it's been done forever. Yeah. We just lost sight of that when it came to symptom care and insurance companies, and reduce how you feel and just keep everything steady so that nobody feels anything. You good? All right, we're good. Let's just keep rolling like this. But if you come up, we're going to bring you down. If you go down, we're going to bring you, but you're going to go right there. And if we can keep everybody at peace and just boom, there you are. So we were the place that was, even orthopedic surgeons, after we just kind of repeatedly had reproducible response, and everybody was just getting better, whether you had MS or you had Parkinson's or you had a torn rotator cuff or you had a herniated disc or you had developmental delays at 9 years old. Like, when you came to the three stooges that were Vladimir, John, and I, when we came into this, like, you got better. Yeah. You got better, and you just expressed it at just like a level you never even believed was possible. And so those orthopedic surgeons would literally say to their patients, look, our methods aren't working. Go to these guys. I have no idea what they do, but just hear them out. And we extended out. We worked with many Chicago Bears. My brother-in-law played with the Chicago Bears for a long time, so my clientele was a lot of Chicago Bears. We reached out to their training staff, their head trainer. We gave them packages on stuff that it wasn't, we had invented nothing. We're just bringing back the old school things, that principles that you can't break, principles or laws, to hopefully get those guys off of those manila packets that they leave the game with every single time. Those manila packets that are unlabeled, full of opioids and narcotics and all the other stuff, to keep them feeling free.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that was it. So where our guys would ditch them. They'd get the packet and would throw them in the garbage. You know what I mean? Like, what an impact we're having on somebody who's entertaining the nation with their body and supporting their families. That's great, but there's life after football, damn it.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Did you get like for your dad, like becoming, you know, from the old school, was he accepting of like your way of doing things, or was he kind of like, what is this hippie shit?
You know what's cool is that every time I'd show him something, I'm like, Dad, check this out. And he's like, oh, I did that in 1974. Like, he'd tie in things that we were doing, and he's like, oh yeah, I did that. Who taught you? Well, it just went on feel. So he was very intuitive, genetically gifted for sure. There's a level of that, at that level of sports. I get it.
Yeah.
But there was also this level of feel that he had with his art and profession. He would just throw to feel. He would work to feel. Like, he constantly wanted to feel stuff. I posted this on Instagram. He would wear all these layers when he would run and work out, especially in the hot areas. hot climates. And I said, why? And he's like, well, I wanted my training and preparation environment to exceed my game. I wanted my game to be the easiest environment I had. And I was like, who taught you that? Because that's exactly what it is. That's what it should be now that we've studied it and everything else. He's like, oh, I just felt it. So he had this level of intuition, which I believe we all have when we clear away the educated and shut it down and go through it. It's like we could all feel a lot of what would be best for us, who we should be hanging out with, where we should be, what we should be doing, eating, sleeping, all those things. It's muffled. There's so many mufflers on everything. We don't really know what's true, what's feeling, what's dimmed, what's not, what's turned on. There's some of it that's extreme. Like if he was extreme in 74, I'm extreme now, and I'm not even one of the extremes. I'm just consistent. And that's one of the things that he was. I'm savagely consistent with the simple. Like over and over and over and over. And so he was really open to it. Plus, you can't refute what works.
Yeah, totally. But was he like playing for 26 years? Did they try to like get him to where it's like, oh, you're taking the cortisone shots, you're taking the, the juice, you're taking whatever it is? Like, was he part of that like world at all, do you think?
So
or do you
up
know?
until no, this is cool. So up until first time he ever had elbow pain, he was 13 years old. And everybody's like, even Tommy John had elbow pain, and he was doing what you're saying and all this stuff. Like, wait a second. Experiencing pain is a very common response.
Yeah, totally.
You should feel it. Repeated, staying in it, it leading to something, ignoring it, and then it moving on to something bigger. Okay, that's not appropriate. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But he had pain at 13. They had just lengthened the mound, and he was going through this phase where maybe a 13-year-old shouldn't pitch that much at that distance. Okay, cool. Like, he just went through it. That was the first time he had ever experienced pain. He was a professional at 19, big leagues at 21, I think. 21 years old. So up until the surgery, he had had elbow pain. I was like, how long had he had pain prior to 74 when the elbow blew? He's like, 13 years. Wow. So he had had pain for 13 years. But back then, you can't say that you have pain because they'll just move you out and bring you on. And if the team doctor knows you have pain, then the owners know you have pain, and it's so he had to go out to other doctors. And what did they do? Over the course of 13 years, it was 40 to 50 cortisone shots, which you can't do now. Like, it was like 3 in a lifetime, I believe, with what they studied and whatever. So the fact that he survived 13 years with 40 to 50 cortisone shots, it just turned his ligament to glass. Yeah. And then when it broke, the body had been warning for 13 years. Like, I'm talking to you, bro. You're not helping. I can't hold on any longer. All right, we're going to shut you down. And then Job came in, the doctor, and they explored this whole thing. After that, it was very much, I got to go into and feel myself and go into certain things. Like, he hated icing, but he did icing because the Dodgers and Yankees and A's and Angels said icing was good. He's like, all right. And as soon as they got it off his arm, he ran into the shower and heated. And now they know icing for injuries isn't ideal. The guy that came up with it in the first place was like, I was wrong. And like, it's like, dude, you felt that it wasn't ideal for you, but he would just go blast a hot shower on it because it felt better. Yeah. He threw all the time, every single day off of a mound. He never threw in the offseason. He took breaks when the season was over till 3 weeks before spring training. Like, it's what should be happening now. Some of the old school principles like that stuff should be there. But if we could bring in this cutting edge, innovative, like training, recovery, like we have access to so much, but it's almost replacing those old schools with like the data, and the new school is just shitting on the foundation of what everything's built upon. You got to keep coming back to that to add on. Like, you need a pin cushion to actually stick pins into. We don't have a cushion. We're just throwing pins everywhere. You know what I mean? And so that was he had access to a lot of that, and he threw batting practice to his team, and he managed up until he was 62. So he threw batting practice every single day, hard. Like, he just threw. Throwing was like us hiking.
Yeah.
He just loved throwing.
Yeah.
Like, he just got a ball in his hand, and he just loved it. He loved having catch.
That's awesome.
And so it was after that fact. It was a big page turner, but he had 14 seasons without missing a start because of his elbow. So something he did was right. I'd want to reach out to that guy if I had Tommy John surgery. Like, you're the most successful one in the history of ever, and you're the first guy, and you're still alive. Help me. And nobody reaches out.
That's really weird.
And what's crazy is they don't reach out because, and I feel that this is the way it's, well, the doctors know what they're doing, which to an extent they kind of do. Well, they've perfected the surgery. That's what I love. They've perfected the surgery. The surgery is like like putting in the part. Somebody has to go in and plug it in. Like you have to connect the whole thing. Yeah. That's where the rehab and the individual comes into play. Well, there's a protocol. It's just a check the box protocol. And it's not working. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then we have these repeat offenders, or it moves around the body. And that's kind of the day and age with PT and the way rehab is now especially. But it's as long as your previous injury isn't sensed, it's cured. You don't feel your elbow, but my shoulder and neck are blown up and I've got all these other things. Right, but you don't feel your elbow. Okay, good. Well, we got to call those other things something because we need a new package to pay for it and we have to label it. Now there's it's like, dude, stop it. And they're coming up with all those things. It's like, I don't even know what the next people are coming in like, I'm diagnosed with, what are they calling it? It's just renaming it in Latin. Yeah. Like your symptoms, whatever you've got. And now I've heard like there's surgeries even for constipation in kids. If a kid's suffering from constipation, which pain meds will cause that.
Yep.
All right. And now I
had a hemorrhoidectomy after all of my like opiate addiction issues.
Totally.
At 31, I think I was.
So
like,
now,
dude, like what?
With what they created with the opioid disaster, there will come opioid constipation. And there's a surgery for that. And they'll go in and cut shit out of you.
Yeah.
What the wait a second. Has anybody thought, to changing your lifestyle, to changing how you breathe, how you connect, how you, well, no, because the schools don't teach that. In the defense of that side, the schools are not going to do that because there's no money in that.
Yeah, it's really sad because like when I was going through that whole process, like there was like a part of me that was like, fuck, dude, I'm 31 years old. I'm having like a hemorrhoidectomy. Are you kidding me? And I knew that like the doctor was like, listen, like, and he knew at that time that I was super holistic. Like I wanted to find a way to like make it better where it was all good. He's like, listen, the damage you've done from all the opioid stuff, like you can't undo it. Like it's done. Like your prolapse, whatever you want to call it. Like, but it's just bad, you know? So you can't, there's no fixing that. Moving forward, however, you can fix it. Once we do this correction and whatever, like you can fix it. It's all up to you after that.
Yeah.
I was like, roger that. I'll go ahead and go through with it, And of course they tried it, but what's funny though is you have these like surgeries and they give you more opiates to like go through the surgery.
To counter the surgery that brought you there in the first place.
And I'm like, listen, like I don't want any of your pain pills, man. He's like, no, every doctor I feel like always tells me it's like, oh, you're gonna need it. You're gonna need it. And I'm like, I'm sure it would feel better if I had it, but I definitely don't need it.
Right.
So like that surgery, no pain pills. 3 knee surgeries, no pain pills.
Nice.
And then the last back surgery, no pain pills.
It's like if you weren't given an option, how much different would your interpretation of the pain be? Like if they didn't say that, if they spoke in an empowering way, like, hey, you're going to feel some stuff because the body's going to hurt when it heals. Yeah. But you got this, man. Like you got this. There is the option, but you got this.
Yeah, it was kind of like I was sold, like a lot of my family was even telling me like, you should probably take like the pain pills because it helps your body heal.
Oh my God.
I was like, what?
God.
How's that? That doesn't even make any sense.
Right.
And they're like, well, because like you need to like calm your like parasympathetic nervous system, and it's going to be so like amped up because you're fighting off pain that you can't heal. I was like, no. I completely and 100% disagree with that. So like what I did with all of those surgeries, actually, especially the back surgery, was I just breathed into it.
Yeah.
And really was like, okay, like I have a whole night that I need to get through. Okay, so let me break this down in like 1 minute or like 30-second increments. And so I'd like basically like shut my brain off and be like, okay, I'm not going to think right now. I'm going to zen out.
Right.
I'm going to quiet my mind and let my body do whatever it needs to do and heal. And I was reading Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo.
Dude.
Got it. So I was all about that life. I was like, oh man, this is like, I got this. You know what I mean? Like mentally, like I'm totally good. I mean, there was a part of me that I can own the fact that a lot of it was me just being a stubborn, person, being like, I'm stubborn. I'm not taking pills. Fuck that,
Yeah.
But the other part of me was like, I wanted to know what I could endure, like what I can like shut out and like just experience and be with and be like, okay, I can get through it. So for the first like 3 weeks after that last surgery the first 3 weeks were brutal. Like it was like torture, kind of, but I did it in a way also to like show other people like, dude, you're so powerful, man.
Awesome.
You have no idea like what you can really like endure if like, and I'm not saying that you should just, embrace the suck and go through things that are terrible, but like, what's the alternative though? Like a lot of these people, that's how it starts. You have a surgery, you take these pain pills, next thing you know, you have years and years and years of an addiction.
Right.
So for me, it just wasn't worth it. It's like, nah, I don't want to go down that road again.
I was trying to tell people, like, even an emotional hurt, like the pain is telling us something. Like there's a learning going on with it. Now, the pain interpreted, because it's an interpretation of stimulus, right? And somebody could experience the exact same thing and have a completely different scenario, right? Like, so our perception of it is okay. But if we feel it and it is so intense, that 3 weeks was so intense, well, then the brain knows the level of healing it's supposed to trigger. If it can't ever feel, it doesn't know the level of severity because you've just shut it all down. And then all of a sudden, like, your symptoms will go away. Go into a cave and rehab with wolves, and you'll come out pain-free. And, like, you know what I mean? I say this all the time. I'm like, rehab really isn't much how it's set up. Get somebody out of pain. Dude, send them to an island and just, like, pick them up in 3 weeks. They're going to come like, yeah, I feel better. I have no clothes. I have no food. This sucks. I'm lonely, but I feel better. Yeah. Right. But, like, to get it to not happen again. That's the thing. To get it to not compound. It's like Biggie sizing injuries. Like, it goes from one injury that was just a small to now it's layered on layered on layered. And now somebody walks in or somebody's dealing with something that's up here. And then you got to come down to that original nugget that if we all went through that original thing with the support and our awareness at that point, is it going to be hard? Fuck yeah. Like, oh my gosh, it's hard. But that's the point. Like, that's the whole thing. But 4 layers up is, oh my gosh, hard. Like, it's unbelievable. Not impossible, but let's get it. But that's why I have to explain to people in here. They're like, all right, replaced hip at 70. Okay, how long did it take you for your hip to get this way? 62 years. Okay. We got to undo 62 years of stuff.
I'm so glad you said that. We, I talk to a lot of people that are going through, a rehab or, addiction or whatever the case may be. And it seems like everyone just wants, like, a quick fix to their issue. Like, give me a pill to make it go away. Right. Give me a pill to give me the energy, the strength, the this, the that. But, like, not a lot of people want to do the work that it requires.
Right.
And somebody said to me, like, when I was going, I'm glad you brought up the emotional piece, because I think, like, for me, like, when my back initially was jacked, I would venture to say that a large majority of that was emotional.
Sure.
There was a lot of things I was holding on to emotionally and spiritually that I didn't know how to, like, process.
Right.
And so, like, I, like, got stuck in the Western, like, model of things. And once I got stuck in it, it almost became like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I was going to be like this guy that was going to go through all these things, and, like, but I didn't need to really go through them. I was creating a lot of them, you know? And I think I shared this with somebody, probably even on the podcast, that I think maybe 5 of my surgeries of the 6 on my back, like, were self-induced. I did it to myself mentally, not physically. I think mentally. Like, I was like looking for a way to check out. And, like, I was so miserable emotionally, spiritually, and just mentally, just totally a wreck, that, like, having a surgery for me was a better option than doing life.
Right.
It gave me the opportunity to go to the hospital. I would get another dose of, like, some gnarly opiates. I can completely check out from my life and just do, and that was okay with me. It's like, I'm totally cool with that. And going through this rehab, I know I'm capable. I can do it. And, like, looking back on that, I'm like, dude, what a sick, twisted individual, man.
That's pretty interesting that you say it, like, you can acknowledge that, because that's another thing. People will come in here and they love playing up their label.
Oh, yeah.
And they love listing who they are, but not by their name or their background, but, like, what they've been labeled with. And I refuse. I'm like, okay, I don't even care. Oh, here's a list of the things I've got. I don't care. It doesn't tell me what we're going to do together. Your body's going to leave breadcrumbs. I'm going to follow them. Everybody's different. But they love to walk in and acknowledge that. And if I did empower that, if I kept going in and would talk about that, like, hey, how was the weekend? Oh, this and this and this and this. And I don't even play up to it. Like, I won't, no. And they'll almost be like, you don't listen to me. Well, no, because here's the thing. If I did, now all of a sudden you're getting something from you putting that out there, which we have to acknowledge it. We're not in denial. That's not what we're saying here. But, like, the new you is not, you have to break the past, and the past has a label. You can't ever get out from under it. Dude, that's Dispenza to the max, right?
Yeah,
like,
totally,
to break that cycle, as soon as you're labeled, boom, fuck that. Like, go in to get diagnosed for something if you're scared. Like, people will come, hey, I'm going to the doc. Hey, I'm going to the doc. Hey, I'm going to the doc. Anything. Okay, just understand. Most of their tests are to find stuff so they can sell you some more stuff. But they have to find it first to sell it. Yeah. So just be ready. And if you know you have that option, just like you, where you're like, I'm not going to take drugs for the surgery. I'm not going to do anything. And they're like, well, get ready because, no, I'm good. So if you go in, here's the MRI, here's what we got. Okay, here's what we find. You got 6 things. 5 of those are in you and I right now, but we just don't sense them. But that's okay. The 6th one, well, of course, we got PT, we got injections, we got drugs, we got all these therapies and tapes and all this stuff. Okay. All right, thanks, doc. I'll weigh out my options. Hold on, you want me to put you in touch with? No, I'm just going to thank you for doing what you guys do fairly decent, which is diagnose, which isn't still that accurate, like with our methods, but thank you. And now I'm going to go weigh out my options. That's all I'm trying to get people to understand is like, dude, as regardless of what it is, assuming it's not an infection or something that's going to kill you within hours, you know what I mean, or the next day, like, which is more than likely not the case, and like 98% of the time. Okay, this is what I've got. This is what my body's doing right now. All right, what are the options? What sits best with me? Because I'll tell people that too when they walk in. What's the best way for me to go about this? The one you believe in. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, if you can't get behind believing in what I'm talking about, it's not going to work. The best one, even if it's, in my opinion, the worst, it's still not as effective as what you believe in, because your belief is the king dick of all things, like your belief behind it.
I tell everyone, man, like, you got to believe it to see it. And I think the first place I heard that was Dr. Wayne Dyer. I was listening to a lot of him when I was like going through my like withdrawals and all that other stuff. And I believe that. Like, you have to believe it to see it. It's not the other way around. You don't have to see it to believe it. You have to believe it to see it. And for me, that's what got me through all that shit, was like believing that I was going to come out the other side of it way more powerful and way more like in tune with who I was as a person, in tune with my body and things like that. And like, even like I was sharing with you earlier, I went to the doctor to have an MRI because I wanted to make sure that everything was good with the center of my back, because like I'm not a moron, and I know that like with the with fusions and things like that, the disc above the fusion tend to like wear down a lot faster. So I was kind of like, well, I'll go check it out, knowing full and well that like I'm not going there for a diagnosis. Right. I'm not going there for you to give me some prescription of drugs or to tell me that I need surgery, because even if you did, like, I'm not gonna do it. Right. Like, I'll find, okay, so how do I reverse engineer that? Right. And get back to a good baseline where I'm not in pain, Right. Simple.
And that's the thing. In their defense, that's what they're taught. That's how the schools are set up. You know, it's not their fault. They think they're helping people, and a lot of the times they are. But with how they're educated, that's their tools in their tool chest. It just might not be the carpenter you want to go to. This is a job that's necessary. There's a whole bunch of different options. Weigh it out. And I will say this, expressing 100% vulnerability, I practice what I do and what I suggest to people on the daily, because we're preparing for something either one, we didn't notice, we averted. Like, I've slipped and fallen. That could have been a torn Achilles or a fracture or whatever, but I survived that environment. I think of it as this embarrassing moment. I just slipped. But it could have been something. Or you're battling, we have MRSA in our nose right now. Like, why are we not dying of MRSA? Because our immune system's awesome. Do you know what I mean? Well, we could think about it and be like, oh my God, I have MRSA. And then that stress response is going to lower it. Like, no. So we're just taking care of ourselves to avert stuff that we're not even aware of. But on the chance that we get imbalanced or something gets us and our body's going into adapting to it and we feel symptoms, right? Yeah. And we're feeling symptoms. Dude, even me, I'm not claiming invincibility. I'll have injury and I'll have digestive stuff, or I was talking to you before, daily depression. Yeah. Hell yes. Like, it's a human feeling. Yeah. It's a common thing that we should go through. In those moments, I'm terrified and I doubt my entire belief system. It comes so fast like that, and I'm like, holy shit. If I wasn't, no, I just slow things down and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna go do this, this, and this against everything that I've been talking about. I'm like, wait, this is crazy. Because I feel this way, I'm terrified, I'm very vulnerable because I'm symptomatic. Yep. I'm open to anything. If I got on Google or I watched a commercial or I just went in for a screening, holy shit, I'd come out and be like, no, they have my best. oh, thank God you. And I'm not discounting the fear and stuff like that, but it's so easy to go that we have to practice it over and over and over, knowing that when it happens, slow everything down. Understand that everything you're feeling is by design. Right. It's what the body is doing by design. It has your best interests in mind. Everything you're feeling is to ensure your survival and your adaptation. That blows me away. Totally. So I'll go with like even food poisoning or something like that, because I keep trying to keep onions out and eating them. And if you want to induce food poisoning on your enemy, cut an onion, let it sit on the counter, and then dice it up and feed it to them. Like, you will have food poisoning like that.
Because it soaks up all the bacteria.
Exactly. That's what they do, where they put them over the ears. They put them in the socks of kids. Like, that's what it does in your body, too, in a good way. I learned the hard way that you have to eat an onion pretty quickly, or at least seal it. Yeah. But I've gone back to dips and Texas caviars and stuff like that, and I'm like, dude. Totally. Anyway, but I've been laying in, like, and having food poisoning symptom. I'm like, wait a second. My body's making me feel like shit for a reason. Now, what's it doing? It's going to hold everything in my stomach. I can't let it go to the small intestine, because if it does, it's going to get dangerous. There's bacteria that can't pass. So it's going to try to get me to come up this way. So I got to let this come up. As much as I hate it, I got to let it come up. Yep. So, all right, it's going to go. Now you made sense. Instead of people being, you're sick, are you sick? Or are you straight up dialed in? Sick would be that not happening and me dying. Vomiting because of food poisoning? Oh, dead on. A runny nose, depression after a death or a breakup or a divorce or something. You're not sick at all. Now we're calling growth disease in kids. You got Sever's disease. You got Osgood-Schlatters disease. Growth as a disease? What system is that? Yeah. Like across the board? No way.
It's such a trip, man. I was having all those issues I talked to you about with anxiety and panic and all those other things. And what I've learned over the last couple months, even, it's a constant growth edge for me, but like to just sit with some of that stuff, sit with it and ask yourself, like, where is this coming from? Why is this coming on? And like, how am I feeling and why? Right. And I even did that yesterday. I went to a birthday party, and I knew the person's house that we were at, but like, I didn't know a lot of the other people there. So it's like, dude, there's all these random kids everywhere and all these people running around. I'm like, my chest started to get a little tight, whatever.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, dude. So I started getting kind of like sweaty, and I'm like, dude, this like sucks so bad. And like my normal strategy and response, I'd be like, dude, how do I get out of here?
Exactly.
Let me find an exit strategy to get out of here. So like I immediately stopped that thought process yesterday and was like, nope. Yep. You're gonna sit with that. Yeah. And you're going to just allow it to be. Right. And what I was doing before, what I think a lot of people do, is they chase symptoms. They chase like how they're, like for me, it's like, oh, I'm getting a little GI distress or whatever. Like, what's going on? Maybe I ate something bad. Okay, let me take some activated charcoal. Let me take whatever I need to take to like get rid of the symptom. But I'm not ever allowing anything to just happen and be what it is. I'm always doing that process of elimination, and like to where I make myself crazy. Right. But yesterday I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to allow that feeling to be there, a little tightness in my chest, a little sweaty, and allow my kids to have a cool experience and experience what they need to experience. And I'm totally cool. Like I can source my own safety internally, and I'm good. This is an unsafe environment. It's just making me uncomfortable because I don't know any of these people. And like, but I think a lot of us get in that trap of like not allowing things to just be. And
as an important thing there, because I'm the same person. I'm the same way, and I would go find a bathroom to just hang out in and just survive the, well, wait a second. So, and with depressive moments, like I have daily depression, and everybody's still shocked. Like, you? Like, what? But you're so positive. Like, honestly, when it does come, I stay with it because it's teaching us something, right? And you were saying when we were talking earlier, because you sat with it, or if we choose to sit with it, that's our coal walk. That's our fire walk. We just leveled up because we didn't do something to distract it and take us out of that environment. You stayed in it. You just leveled up. Yep. Like, think about the next time something like that does happen. It's now dialed down from an 11 on the panic meter to a 9. Till you have it a couple 30 more times, because it's going to happen again, right? Like, I'm going to get depressed the next month. Like, sure. Yeah. But then when big shit does happen that we were talking about, it's just prepping us for the big stuff. That's what I'm trying to like get people to understand, right? It's like everything that we're going through is just prepping us for something major later on. Like, somebody's got Lyme's disease and somebody had the flu, and I was like, oh, lucky you. And they're like, what are we talking about? And I'm like, dude, think about your immune system right now, what it's going to go through as you go through this. There's a chance there's antibodies that you're going to create beating this that are going to be able to fight some rando cancer later on down the line that you don't. Every time we go through that, do you know what I mean? Like we look at these illnesses and it's like, oh man, you're sick. Well, I feel like I'm training and leveling up. Like, what a great thing. Like, do you know what I mean? And so I try to flip it that way.
Yeah, and a lot of people I think are like when you talk about like having depression and stuff like that, I think people think because, I'm glad that you shared that, because it's like here you are and everyone sees like your Instagram and they see like your social media and like, dude, you're such a positive guy.
Right.
Oh my God, you have depression? How real is that though?
Yeah.
That's so real to be able to be like, you know what, like just because like I share positivity, just because I share mindset and I share like fortitude and all these other things, doesn't mean that I don't have down days, man.
Right.
Like I still struggle too, you know, like I'm not perfect.
No.
And I think that's where a lot of people get off the tracks a little bit, is that they're looking to outside sources for their inspiration, motivation, and drive and all these other things. And then when those people fall short of like their expectation, it's like, oh my God, oh geez, you know, and they're like taken for a loop by it.
Right.
But I think we could do everyone a service by just being real and authentic. And just being like, listen, man, like, yeah, man, I struggle with anxiety and panic. And, you know, there's been times where I couldn't manage it, dude. And I took an anti-anxiety pill and it sucked. And I was very upset with myself that I had to do that. But you know what? I wasn't able to function, you know? And it's okay. I'm not going to go down the road of benzodiazepine addiction. But it happens sometimes, you know what I mean? But I used to think like for a while, like, oh my God, what a moment of weakness and what, you know, and I'm not going to do that anymore, man. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. So now, like I've learned, like you said, like leveling up, I've learned from that experience. Yeah. It's like, okay, I don't want to feel that way anymore. Right. So how do I, instead of like just being like, okay, cool, I can take an anti-anxiety pill. I can be like, okay, how do I level that up? Well, I'm going to just sit with that feeling. Like, okay, how does this feel? Why am I feeling this way? Okay. Yeah. Uncomfortable environment. Don't know where I am. Right. Kind of like, all right, cool. Get a little vertigo. All right, yeah, it's cool. Sure. Cool. This can be like a fun trip, you know, if you let it be, you know? Right. Yeah. So it's totally fucking awesome, man. So how did like getting out of baseball, before we move on, actually, before I move on from that, I wanted to ask you, was there a point like when you were growing up, being who your dad was, that like you wanted to like make him proud? Like, whereas like, you know, you were working like as hard as you worked, was it like, did you feel like it was your own like work ethic that was pushing you? Or do you think it was like more of like, no, my dad works this hard, like I want to prove to him a little bit? So
it was a majority of me I didn't like not being good. I didn't like Wei Chung Wang beat me in field day in the 60-yard dash in 4th grade. It drove me fucking crazy. And I didn't come home and announce it to everybody. He beat me by like 4 yards. And he ended up playing professional sports and everything else, but he was stronger than me. And I had moved to Jersey from California, and I was fast for my age. And field day comes around, and he beat me. And I had second, and I had the red ribbon or whatever it was. And I went home and was just like, I had no concept of training or anything else, but I got on the treadmill. I had a year to get faster than Wei Chung Wang. And that's what I was going to do. And I was on the treadmill. My dad comes down. He's like, what are you doing? Just getting faster. And he's like, all right. Like, I didn't announce it. I didn't go into anything. It was, I didn't like, not losing. I just knew I had better in me. That's all I knew. I don't know where that came from, because it was 3rd, 4th grade. It wasn't like it instilled me from my dad, or there were life lessons or anything else. I feel like a lot of that was my wiring, and that's the type of person that I was. I never beat Wei Chung Wang. We went through 6th grade field day. I mean, it's one of those things you just kind of accept that you worked as hard as you could, and second is pretty good. Like, but I kept beating Michael Halkias by like 4. He kept taking 3rd. And how did Michael feel? He keeps getting beat by 2 guys. You know what I mean? I'm like, damn it.
Did you get closer at least, like to beat him?
Dude, not even measurable. Like, I was just like, damn it. Like a year later, and I'm like, oh, I got him. I mean, I had like knee-high color rimmed socks. I had Velcro shoes. Socks. Dude, I think I had kangaroos with like a dime in the pouch because it was like a lucky dime. Like, I rocked out some Mad Libs the night before. Like, I was prepped. I was ready to go. And he beat me by the same amount. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. All that work I did. And I trained. And I was a kid. But again, to get back to it, it was very much, I didn't like being I didn't like not excelling in something that I was trying. If I was going to try baseball, I wanted to be as good of a baseball player as I can. That's why I don't do golf right now. Because if I were to go into it, it'd take thousands of balls a day, which I want to do. It'd take thousands of 7-irons on Tuesday, thousands of 8-irons on Wednesday, and then put a round together later on, but it would cost time and money, and I know I can't do that. So I play 2 rounds of golf with my dad a year, and that's it. And I just accept that I'm going to be at whatever I'm going to be at. But if I'm going to go into something, I'm going to pour myself into it. Yeah. It just so happened, though, that the environment around me, because my name carried Tommy John, I'll never forget this. 4th grade, I'm in Little League in Cresskill, New Jersey, Bergen County, and I'm standing on the mound, and my stirrups are coming out the back of my shoe, and I'm like this uniform's hanging on me, and I'm just like, you know, holding the ball with all my fingers because I'm tiny, and I'm pitching, and I'm throwing a ball, and every time something would happen, all these kids were making noises behind the fence, and I started to look, and I saw my sister, and I started to realize we had just moved to Jersey. My dad's still fully in his career, so he's a Yankee in North Jersey. Like, that's unbelievable. They're going to come. They're going to flock. Yeah. And let's see the guy named after him. Let's see his son. So they were 4 deep watching me at these Little League games, and I realized, oh my God, they're watching me, and I didn't have the capacity to show them stuff because I wasn't good. Yeah. So that was frustrating to me. It didn't drive me. That drive was there, but it was really that, oh my gosh, there's more eyes on me because of this name. Damn you, Dad. Like, it wasn't that at all. It was just like, all right, let's go. You know, and then I worked my ass off, and I still wasn't good. I didn't get good till my senior year of high school. And people would come, scouts would come, because Tommy John's going to pitch. Let's watch him. And I remember seeing them watch me put a gun up or watch, and they're just like, up. And after the first inning, they'd leave because I wasn't presentable. I wasn't good as I was going to be. So there is the element that you want to be good because you want to make your parents proud. You want to make your sister proud and your brothers proud. Dude, there's that. Families in the stands. Yeah. And I'll never forget when they would come regularly, you could get into a routine. And when they'd come visit randomly in college, I'd have my worst games when they'd show up because I would try so hard because you want yeah, man. I mean, if you're an artist, you want to paint something very well. If you're going to play, you're going to, do you know what I mean? Whatever that expression is. And at the time, it was baseball for me. But it wasn't because there was all this pressure that he applied on me or I had overthought. I just didn't like not being good. And I would obsess with the preparation. And that's what I value in sports today, or artistry of any kind, masters of their craft. The preparation that goes into it, I'm obsessed with. Like, awesome. That's what I want to see. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the competition. I don't have a favorite team. And my buddy Alex Vogel, he's in Knoxville. He's like, for somebody in sports, you don't have a favorite team. Like, he gets so upset at me. And I'm like, I don't care about the teams. I care about certain individuals that carry certain characteristics that I want to, that stimulate me to want to watch that. But the whole dog and pony show that are sports now and fashion and entertainment, give me an independent movie. Because there's not the drama or the glamour thrown into it where they have to make $350 million in the first weekend to cover their asses because they put all that. You know what I mean?
What was Karate Kid's budget? Do you remember? Like, I don't know. You guys are gonna see. You're gonna see the video. Like, he's wearing the most gnarly headband. For those of you that don't see the video, they're just listening to the audio. And we were talking about it because, like, we grew up in the '80s, and it's like Karate Kid was the movie,
hands down.
Was the movie.
1984.
Yeah,
it was when the original came out. I'm wearing a Daniel LaRusso authentic Miyagi Go dojo headband, and
yes. Love it.
It was everything for me to find it. And there was all these like costume ripoffs, and they're satin or they're like, and they fall apart. I'm like, no, I want a cloth one that I can tie and sweat in and wear. And so now I can't take it off. And like, people are coming, they're like, all right. And it's hilarious because not many people get it. Yeah. And the ones that get it are my crew, right?
Yeah,
like, I was on the beach and there was a chick walking by and she's like, hey, like, nice moves. I love the headband. I'm like, but do you know what it's from? She's like, yeah, Karate Kid. And I'm like, oh, like high five. You're like, people. Dude, you're it. All right, we got to hang out.
I love it, dude. What is your take on performance enhancing drugs in sports, coming from your sports background? Can we get on that topic?
Yeah, I wish. Like, here's what's tough is that every era had them. Like, whether it was cocaine in the bullpen in the 70s and the 80s, or amphetamines, or speed do you know what I mean? And it's roids in the 90s, or it's growth hormone. Dude, there's more guys getting braces in the big leagues, not because they have money, because their jaws are changing shape. Like, check out guys that have braces and just follow that. There's so much shit going on at the highest level of sports that they'll keep figuring out ways around the tests. Yeah. It's one of those things like, just make it all just make it all legal, or make it all, do you know what I mean? I'm not supporting it at all, because here's what I do know. All those receptors inside of you that you're trying to stimulate with that outside in approach, you can naturally enhance, you can naturally stimulate. It takes an insane amount of grit, consistency, effort, determination, and resiliency. But you can stimulate those. That's why those receptors are there. Not because at some point there was going to be a pill that was involved or an injection that was created. No, right. You have those things already in you. You can stimulate them and create them if your lifestyle is appropriate. You absolutely can create this anabolic freak level. And a lot of people just don't want to put in the work. And that's what I disagree with. So it's one of those things like, do we want to make things illegal and we'll just keep finding ways around it? No way professional sports is going to take my approach to healing and performance, even though it's not as immediate. You know what I mean? Yeah, and totally. Nothing was more than in the NFL. There were 3 of us that practiced the way I do in my office. We held firm in this because people are like, this will never last in pro sports at the highest level. It can. Here's what the thing is. Those guys and girls will feel a lot more, where everything else is just drugs, ice, and stripping and doing all this stuff to increase this immediate performance response. But we'll get them in a position to feel themselves more. They'll have pain and they'll have discomfort, but their bodies function at a higher level in the face of that. So they can still repeat performance on field, on ice, on court, but they're feeling that response. And in 3 weeks, our guys or girls were done with the injury. Everyone else, it's moved somewhere else because you just shut it down with all that shit that they're taking and giving them for the purposes of money.
Yeah, totally.
Do you know what I mean? Get them back on because they're a commodity. I mean, they're entertaining the nation with their bodies, minds, and souls. We don't really care what happens afterwards. And that's truly it. Is it possible? I was talking to a girl from the Washington Post. Is it possible to train how Troy Polamalu trained? Like very natural, he would deny a lot of that stuff. Absolutely. I trained Charles Tillman like that. I trained my brother-in-law like that. There were Chicago Bears that did that stuff. The amount of work, it's not being celebrated. It's the amount, it seems insane and very, almost too much. Like I have people who are like, man, your book, the stuff in there, it just seems a little aggressive. I'm like, that's aggressive? I watered it down so the nation could digest it. Oh my God, that's the level we're at now. And that's just youth, like let alone at the highest level. I'm fully against all that stuff. We just have no idea what our potential is, because that's another thing. When you take that stuff, your body didn't go through the growth steps to get there, so you don't know how to sustain it. And we said this before. I quoted, I said, it's the I'll learn how to manage money after I win the lottery, right? You kind of, if you're injecting or taking or doing something that's enhancing, you're enhancing something that you were supposed to fail in on your way to get up. And that growth was going to happen from those jillion times you fell down and failed and connected with self and learned and processed and failed and learned and processed and failed. And then you got to that same level you're going to get at. Like relatively, like the same level. Yeah. But we don't want to go through that. We want to go, so then fine, there's a backlash. And you got to be ready when the shit hits the fan. And nobody's going to be there to support, the team won't. And the team lets them go, right? Like, oh, concussions? Oh, you're crazy, you're suicidal, you beat your wife up, you did all this stuff. Well, we don't know. Oh, CTEs and whatever. Yeah, we get it, but like, understand that's just, there's so many other elements in there, and all sports are, and I have the hardest time because it's sacrificing the humanity of a man or woman, the essence of a man or woman for entertainment and money. Yeah, you know what I mean? And make livings however you got to. I get it, but sports are like that much of our life, but the decisions we're making within them are compounding afterwards and are affecting long afterwards. Now, everything's manageable, reversible to an extent, but sometimes the body is like, okay, you're trying to get yourself right. I'm in line with you. I'm gonna go with you on this. I have you completely healing when you're 108 years old. That's my timeline. But you died at 81. But the body's like, dude, I had you. If you would have held on at 108 and you didn't die of whatever at 81, that's where the time frame comes, where it's like, this is inconvenient for us because it's not always on our time frame.
Were you always opposed to taking an enhancing drugs? Like when you were playing, were you down with it?
Yeah, so here we always would have this. We had these hypotheticals on the baseball bench. There's so much downtime in baseball that before I learned to just train on the bench and do exercises and do things that would actually get you better, we had these hypotheticals, mostly perverted and X-rated, like would you rather and all this shit.
Right,
you know what I mean? Okay, so then I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus on that one, but these things would come up, and it was just raunchy to the point to where like coach even would hurry it, and he's like, "Really, guys?" So we're sitting there, and part of it was how much would you do to take steroids, or how much would it be? Would you take a cycle? Would you take a single cycle? If you threw 94, if you hit a ball, and we come up with these hypotheticals. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I would, at the time, only because my dad got it from the Yankees, because that's just what you would do. I would cycle in 12 to 16 Motrin throughout my system on a pitching day. 12 to 16 Motrin.
That's a lot. Like
the 200s or whatever was in the bottle, right? And so I would just have those in my pocket and take them like vitamin C like I do now. And it's just get them in my system. He wasn't doing it to hurt me. It was just what the Yankees did. And he applied that logic to my college level. Now, I did this all the way up through college. Pro ball, because it was a higher level, Dr. Job wrote a more heavy-duty prescription for Vioxx. Vioxx was an anti-inflammatory. Vioxx was pulled off the shelves because it was black label because of stroke and heart disease. So, and mind you, it's not like I had pain. I had performance damage. I had this like just playing around, getting sore, and that was it. I wasn't like chronically in pain. It was one of those things that get this in you because what's coming. You don't want to feel what's coming. And again, my dad at the time, like, it's not cortisone, but it's the least amount to this is what we're doing. You know what I mean? And it was almost like, all right. And I didn't doubt him because he's my dad and this is just what we're doing. And it seemed like a sacrifice to take. Well, when I got done with pro baseball and I learned that Vioxx was taken off, I started to go back into pulling away what I had gone through, the nutritional approach that I had taken, the training, the toxic mindset, and the drinking, and all those things that, and the medications that I was doing to enable myself to play at the small level that I did, but not even, what did my body do? And what's going on that I don't even know what's going on underneath that I can't sense? Yeah. Stopped it all. Haven't had a pill since 28 years old. So I'm 42. So again, and it's not because I haven't felt like I've wanted to. Yeah. Like I've bottomed out on a lot of things and gone through a lot of hurt and suffered a lot of stuff, but it was just one of those, no, I'm good with that. Even antibiotics and flu shots and the works. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's like, well, you're telling me you never had strep throat? I would never know. I've had horrid sore throats, but I never got them checked out. If they got worse, I'm not an idiot. Like I would listen to myself and they peaked and I'm like, God, this is death because strep can transfer to your heart and you can die. Right, but strep is also being handled by my body. Like, let's just give this some time. Like, let this process. And I would, and sure enough, if I would fast or I would do broths, I'd be active and proactive in my healing. Like I'm doing something about it. I'm sleeping. I'm not trying to work extra. I'm not trying to keep going, taking antibiotics so I can keep going. No, I'm pulling back, slowing down, being present with myself. And sick many times, injured many times over the course of that 14, 15 years. But that's where I am now. And hopefully in my head, I've remodeled and regenerated any kind of previous damage that was unnoticed in liver, stomach lining, small intestine, mind, what have you. And that's not even a contact sport. Like I can't imagine some of these guys I'm talking to. I was on a panel with Chris Borland, linebacker for the 49ers, who left that contract he had because he's like, no, I'm not. And now he's speaking on concussions and mental health. And he's just like, I'm not doing this in the NFL at the expense of my brain. Like it's not important to me. I'll go make a living doing something else, but I will go ahead and expose some stuff in the NFL and expose some things that are going on with relationships that they got. And he's just like, check this out, and he would show me some things. And it's a crazy entertainment industry at big business. You don't get to billions being honest and necessary and healthy. Right. Very hard.
What do you think the pressure is there in the big league sports to like stay on that edge? Where it's like you need to be the biggest, the fastest, the strongest. Is it a lot of pressure?
You know what I think is the biggest amount? It is. A lot of these guys, they weren't in environments where they were allowed to explore who else they were besides linebacker, forward, right guard. Do you know what I mean? So if this ends, I don't have any freaking idea what I'm going to do.
Yep.
And I got a wife and kids, or I got a fiance, or I got kids, like whatever they've got. Jeez. I gotta take it, because if the alternative is what, selling cars, or what am I going to do? And I'm nobody. I can't do commercials. I can't do you know what I mean? So I feel like that's a lot of it. And I do know that they're trying to. I was talking with Meta World Peace about it, because he was really open about anxiety and depression that he suffered, and now teams are starting to be more open. The NBA and I know the NFL was doing certain things with some of these guys that are coming in, getting the levels of money they're getting in their early ages. And they have no concept of how to operate with all that, but they're almost like going in almost like life school. Yeah. Like, hey, be smart with this. If this ends, what would you do? Do you know what I mean? Like, kind of getting them to think of that.
It's a huge disservice to like get these guys to come in at a super young age with millions of dollars that they've never seen in their life and expect that they're going to do the right things with it. It's like, nah, man. Like, that's why you see a lot of them like bankrupt after, and like all kinds of other financial issues. So I think it's amazing that they're actually doing that now. It's pretty cool. So how did you get into, from leaving baseball, what prompted you to be like, I'm going to get into medicine?
So here's what's cool is with John and Vladi and I at Synergy Fitness and Sports, we were pulling apart all these injuries and working with a lot of people, and I was doing baseball lessons, and the kids that were doing the lessons were 10, 11, 12 years old, and they were suffering from the things that I was treating on 50, 60, 70-year-old people. And I'm like, wait, and this was like 10, 11 years ago. Yeah. Like, something's not right here. And I should not be doing these baseball lessons in the wintertime, making a fortune, when these kids don't need to be playing baseball. They need to be doing other things. And I realized I was a part of this monster problem in youth sports, billion-dollar industry, and I shut down my baseball school. I started to explore other things, and I saw that we had one chiropractor that would come on Fridays to our facility, and he would check them and adjust them, and then we'd work on them Friday and Saturday. And every time Friday or Saturday sessions, they were better. They were stronger. They moved better. They were clearer. I'm very sensitive because I'm always wanting to notice certain things, which is great but bad. Like, I wish sometimes I didn't see certain things, but other things I'm like, I just noticed that, and okay. But I'm very aware, and so I'm like, something's going on here. I thought I was at the top of the food chain with muscle and teaching people how to move and absorb force and heal from soft tissue injuries. So I was like, how naive was that I didn't think there was something bigger than that, which is the central nervous system. And then even spirituality, you know what I mean? We could get into some really crazy stuff. But I was like, wait, the central nervous system, who's the master of that, or who's supposed to be? Chiropractors. Oh, geez. Jason, what'd you do in that office to this guy here? Because his response is completely different than 20 minutes ago when you saw him. And he's like, I don't know, I adjusted this. He didn't know how to tie together what I had known over on this side. So I was like, God, if I could be him and tie this whole thing together, think of the people I could help. And that was just soft tissue injury. Yeah. So that's when I, at 32 years old, shut down my baseball school, got rid of just left the facility I was at, went back to school at 32. Who does that?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right? That was ballsy. Yeah. A heart-led thing. And again, it's not ballsy when it's heart-led. It's just something that I'm going to do. Like, I'm just going to do it. Yeah, totally. The only person who was really supporting was my sister. She was. I'll never forget, because I was just like, do you think this is smart? And she's like, absolutely. Like, degrees and getting smarter and improving yourself, 100%. I had a house. I'm like, what do I do with my house? She's like, you rent it. And I'm like, oh. Everybody else was coming at me. You know what I mean? They're like, keep what you're doing. Why would you give up your clientele? Why would you give up your comfort zone and do all this stuff? Who goes to school at 32? And then I end up, as it happens, like, brother passes away 2 weeks before I'm supposed to go down there, and he was battling mental health. And the reason I say that is because when I get down to chiropractic school, the first class we have is history of chiropractic, and we learn that some of the greatest chiropractic case studies were in mental health at this place called the Clearview Sanitarium, and nobody talks about that. Yeah. And I have opinions as to why Western psychiatry will not let that out. But I had to leave the class when this was coming up because I was bawling my eyes out. And I was like, wait. I went back to school at 32 to help soft tissue injuries and athletes and, all these pain markers. Like, I can help mental health as well by clearing the brainstem, the top 2 inches of the spine. Are you kidding me right now? Holy shit. I just fell ass back. And it wasn't that. It was just, it found me. right? Like it called me, I listened and went.
Yep.
And so it was 4 years later, I get that degree, and then came back and parlayed it into what I have now, where I wanted a place, because a lot gets lost in translation. If you go to your chiropractor who doesn't know anything about training, which a majority of them don't because they're not taught that, or you go to your acupuncturist, they're all segregated and they're all going to tell you something different. And when you're sick or injured or in pain, that sucks, man, when not everybody's on the same page. And you know what I'm talking about. And it's even worse when your cardiologist doesn't know what your GP's saying and your oncologist is saying something different. It's like, dude, get on the fucking same page. What if there was a building where every time people would come in, I check them as a chiropractor. If they've got stuff in the way and there's a soft tissue injury and we got to do some stuff, sure, let's figure out some movements that are going to get in some red flags that you've got. If you need to release some stuff emotionally, we're going to do some guided meditations. We're going to meditate. You're also going to hear me clean out my dirty laundry in here that I suffer every single day of stuff that I'm dealing with. And that's why the office is set up. You see no closed doors. Yeah. Like people come in, they get checked, they're going. Every conversation is overheard on purpose because it's not it's an open zone. Like what a great environment for healing. And I'll say this, like there's salt lamps all over the place. There's oceans on the wall. There's blue. Like everything you look at triggers a healing response that was better than what you had when you came in. Like no matter what, when you walk in here, you have to be better and healing better than you were, even if you choose to not continue with me, which there's an ass load of people that don't keep up. Yeah. Because I also put it on them that you're going to have to work a lot. Very hard. Yeah. It's going to be very hard, but I'm right here with you. And there's another group of people here that are going to support you too. And the best thing, man, is when I backed away, and this was where I'm just like, this was my meditation, this was my vision, is where I've created this living thing that I step back and they don't need me anymore. They're helping each other with this new thought process and this new logic, and it's like or just the way of feeling, intuitive response. Now they're doing it on their own. There's like teenagers talking to adults being like, hey, come on, like a 16-year-old talking to a 42-year-old divorcee, or you know what I mean? And they're all, oh my gosh, and I could just moonwalk out of the room and go out, and it's like, dude, that's a society that I want, not because it's my office, but that's where we should be. That should be where we exist in this country. That should be the way it is. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's just not that way. But that's my view for. So that's my whole goal and why I got into it.
So what do you want this like what is your business first, like so you can like plug it on the podcast? Yeah. So what is it called? What's your mission and like what's the end game? Like what do you want to like accomplish?
That's awesome. So I own and operate the Dr. Tommy John Performance and Healing Center in San Diego. And I call it a performance and healing center because nowhere in there is sports mentioned. Yeah. And we're all human athletes. Whether we need to navigate a crowded mall or a crowded party, or we need to get up and down off a toilet or survive a fall or try to earn a scholarship or try to continue a professional contract or come back from a blown arm or whatever, what have you. Or you're 86 and you want to go out on the highest level possible as hard as you can. We're all trying to perform and heal every day and prepare and adapt to what life is demanding of us or whatever we choose. So I'm just a facilitator. I'm right alongside you and slightly behind. I'm not in front. You're the guide. And I tell people, and that's scary for a lot of people. So my mission, the whole point is to empower people again. I don't think that's focused on. I don't watch TV, but I'm a Tom Brady fan. So I will watch those games through some streaming. But with that streaming comes the commercials. I haven't seen commercials in like 12 years. Yeah. Like and I'm seeing what's advertised. It's drugs, food, cars, and the drugs ones just get me. And it's just like, oh my God, this is what they've gone to? And we're only 2 countries in the world that can advertise for medications on television, by the way.
That's true. Yeah.
New Zealand and us, whatever the rules are there. So if that doesn't say anything, but we're easy to sell when we're confused and terrified. And that's what's going on. We can't have people feeling good about themselves or knowing that there's this power inside them that's the strongest force on the freaking planet right now. And in the known universe of what we understand, it's immeasurable, it's inside, it's infinite, and it's the supercomputer that is the brain will never be replicated to be able to do what it can do. Like, that empowers me to, I want to empower people to know that what they've got inside them is on their side, that they can heal themselves if they feel themselves. They're the driver. It's in their hands. And we need help, no doubt. That 100%. We need a team. We need a support group. Dude, hell yes. But damn it, you are the one. Regardless of what you're going through, you can do this. Because the hopelessness that I saw in my brother's eyes before he died, the hopelessness I see in people's eyes when they walk in and they're medicated out their ears, the hopelessness I see in people who have been given some diagnosis that's correct or not correct, all they heard was the prognosis is always the bad. It's only measured by what the drugs and the surgery and the therapies can do. Just stop. Just hear what they called it and then leave. But they put that on you with, well, we've had a certain percentage go through that. Stop. Because now they just shaped your reality by giving you that information. Just hear what it is, if that, at the most, hear what it is and then leave. I'm here to fight for the spirit that's inside you. It doesn't get respect that it does. We all have it. I don't feel like we're born bad. I feel like if we can tap into, like, I watch these children, not because I'm obsessed with youth sports, but we can learn things as adults. When you see kids that are hysterically laughing with each other, they don't know each other, they go up and introduce themselves, they laugh hysterically, they look at the simplest things, they'll notice everything. Like, there's so much that we can learn from that. That's how we all started. Yep. Damn it, if we could have held on to that, like, okay, we can curse our parents or we can curse our aunts and uncles and grandparents and all that stuff. But dude, all they did was just challenge us to try to find that guy more and that girl more. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's why I constantly say I live like a 12-year-old with adult responsibilities, because 12 was when I was maxed, man. Like, I literally feel the same way I feel now. That was then. So that's and the book even, like I've released a book. It's called Minimize Injury, Maximize Performance, a sports parent survival guide. Cut off the sports parents. It's just a survival guide. I had to target that demographic because Tommy John and Tommy John surgery, and it's happening more in youth than professionals. Okay. But when you get down to it, the solution for preventing those Tommy John surgeries is for concussions and ACLs and pediatric ACLs and stress fractures. And guess what? In order for these kids to get in better positions to function and survive, who has to change? Mom and dad. And guess what? If mom and dad change, now I've changed society with this youth sports manual. Right. That's the bigger picture. 100%. Do you know what I mean? And everyone's like, oh, good luck with that. I'm like, fuck. Tell that to my dad. He had a 1% chance of coming back from this surgery never done before. 1%. Yeah. And he came back and did it, and now it's commonplace. So what if I don't know, what's my shot? I know there's others out there who are speaking the same way, putting the message out there, doing the same thing. Everyone's like, oh, you're going to have a hard time. I'm not the only one. Right. There's more saying this. Kelly Brogan and other people are saying the same thing. It'll never be on mainstream media. Yeah. It'll never be followed until they need to hear it. Nobody wants to yet.
I think there's like a collective like unconscious that's like waking up though. Yeah. I really feel that like internally where it's like there's like me meeting you. I had no idea. I shared with you what my night was like last night. And it was fucking challenging, you know? And I was like, man, I almost was like, dude, am I in tune enough to do this podcast? Am I ready for this podcast? Like, I'm kind of like tapped emotionally and spiritually from last night. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for it. So I called my mentor and I talked to another one of the brothers from the circle, did some breath work in the car before I walked in. I walked in, it was like, dude, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Right? We hugged like right away. Yeah, totally. 2 hours later, we're talking about that stuff.
Totally, man. Like, where do you think for you the spiritual side came out of you when you like basically like became aware of what you already knew, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, so we were very religious as a household, but religious as a poser. Like, we posed religious. Do you know what I mean? And my dad had his faith, no doubt, and he's very religious, and I don't know what my mom believes, but they tried to then get us as kids to. And church never felt right. Like the church that I went to, a Christian church, and it it just I never felt more spiritual, like what they were all talking about. And I was open to listening to it. And I was just, it just doesn't. And the girls I've dated they've been religious. I'm like, okay. And I'd go with them to wherever they were going to support. And I would sit there and I'm just like, I'm open because I'm not so proud that I'm above anything. Like, hey, maybe I might learn something today. Like, I don't know. All right, let's get vulnerable. And it's a screen of a freaking pastor in Atlanta because he's not even there. He's at some other place. And I'm like, wait, are you serious? We're looking at a screen right now? And she's like, yeah, he's televised. And I was like, we're in a congregation and he's on a screen. I'm like, okay. And I was like, to avoid a fight, like later on, I'm like, all right. And I'm like watching this guy and I'm like, okay, let's listen. It's just all this fluff and it's everyone putting on this front that if they were religious, that somehow they vindicated off of these bad choices that they continue to make. You know what I mean? Or they were Christians when they were convenient for them. You know, like, I don't know, like what?
Yeah, it seems kind of like weird, you know. And I went through the same thing. My parents were like, "Oh, let's be Christians and let's go to church and do all this stuff." And like, I bought into it as a kid because it was like my program, you know. So I was definitely like a Bible-toting evangelist, and I thought, I remember thinking like, or feeling bad that like, wow, like other people are gonna go to hell because they don't believe like me. Right. That's so weird, you know. Like I was like, I kept asking my stepdad, you know, like, dude, how's the Dalai Lama going to go to hell because he doesn't believe like me? That doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't even like, I can't compute it. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. And so I started having like this awakening. And then, you know, I went through the whole process of like, I don't know if you call it grief or whatever, like coming to this new awareness of like, I was angry. I was like, I felt cheated that like I wasn't exposed to like more like, you know, ideologies and beliefs. And I was like, you pigeonholed me into this shit. Right. So I felt like I got hosed a little bit. But yeah, that was my awakening. Was like, no, this isn't for me, just because like I feel like it's closing me off to so much other information. And I'm like, I'm at the heart of who I am is a lifelong learner. Like I have to learn. If I'm not learning, like I'm dying. You know what I mean? Like totally. That's how I feel, you know?
That was, I think it was my brother passing away. That was the real big, because he was very religious. And again, not that, I just started looking into myself more and connecting with whatever I thought God was or felt that God was, because I was like, I just lost my brother. When am I going to see him again? I got to see him at some point, or I got to interact with him, or I connect with him at some point. Where is this level? If he's energy and energy just left his meat suit, like you know what I mean? Like, where'd it go? And what, how can one be over another? It just didn't make any sense. So I was just like, well, I think they're all right. What's God? Like, God's in me, just like it's in a plant, just like it's in a, like there's this intelligence. I'm like, huh. And I started to like make these connections as I was getting outside more and going to Georgia and going to chiropractic school. Dude, I was saturated in nature. And everyone's like, hippie, this, that. Like, you want to feel good? Go just stand in a forest. Just stand. Like, you will be bathed in stuff that you don't even have to believe in it. Like, it's happening. Like, there's now doctors writing prescriptions for forest walks. It's called foresting. And they'll write it. And it's like, go out there. So I connected with that. And I'll keep telling people my most profound spiritual experiences have never been in a church to this day. Like, I feel closer to whatever people are thinking God is, or whatever my interpretation of what it is, when I'm out, like out by the ocean or out in the desert, or observing the smallness of a tree or a string of ants with this intelligence behind them, and they're all walking in the same path. And if I blow them out of way, they all end up going back into the same thing. How the hell is that happening? Like, you've got to be kidding me. And then just honestly, like, being a good person, like just trying to do as much good as I can. Like, I feel like we got choices, and from a spiritual standpoint, and Earth, and wherever we fit in this whole thing, and we're so tiny in this whole thing, and all you got to do is go look up at the night sky or the moon, or go jump in the ocean and get owned on a calm day, and the Pacific pitches me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I got no control. Like, this was a 2-foot wave, and it just upended me, freaked me out. Oh, this is awesome. I'm not as powerful as I maybe thought I was. All right, cool. You got it. I got it. I'm humbled. I'm cool. But then, like, going in and having people feel that there's just something bigger than you, and then you acknowledge that, and that's all part of that, right? Like, it's all coming from the same place, regardless of how people spin it for their agenda. Yeah. Like, whoever these men or women were that were these healers, I think they all were saying the same thing.
Totally. And
if we are a part of the earth or this, I feel like, and I said this in a post, I could be taken out tomorrow. It's not about living forever. I'm gonna go out as high as I can. Happy, connected, source. Like, that's it. That's all I can hope for, man. But I want to be a probiotic to the systems that are, and I think, like, if I continue to do good, like, this whole thing is going to keep me around because I'm healthy to this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we can be a probiotic, or we can be this really infectious bacteria. Because if you back off of Earth far enough and you see us, we look like those tiny little invasions that come on, you know, that collect to form a tumor or an infection or strep throat, or that a white, you know, the immune system will go ahead and process that. Like, damn. And floods and fires and volcanoes and earthquakes and all this other stuff and storms are just the Earth's immune system just kind of balancing its shit out. And it's like, all right, so if I can be a probiotic for as long as I can, maybe it'll keep me around, or maybe this whole thing will try to, because I have purpose, I hope. Yeah. Nothing's guaranteed. And again, if I go tomorrow, and I get to hang out with my brother on some other level that, you know what I mean? Whatever that is.
What do you think your purpose is? Like, if you had to define, like, your life's purpose, like, what do you think?
I think teacher, man. Like, I think, you know, I think to however you exchange with me, if I, in our exchange, taught you that, really like a reminder, just to get back to this thing that you already knew you once had.
Oh, for sure.
Like, that's all.
Just teach you what you already know.
Nothing's invented and nothing's, dude. And everyone's like, oh, what's your system? And when they come in, they're like, that's it? And I'm like, hold on. It's just consistency. I'm just standing on what's worked forever, like since the dawn of forever. Like, it's just there. And I can rest my head knowing that with full faith, it's probably going to work out if you stick around long enough. Like, it's going to end up turning up on its end, and it's going to be a good thing. And that's it. I'm just reminding them of what they once knew, either as a kid or as a youth or in utero or even before that, or however far back you want to go to. Do you know what I mean? Just because you're educated is the greatest chiropractic, the fastest chiropractic changes after an adjustment reported, typically, it's not even fastest. It's just where it's like an immediate, where you can see, like when I adjust you later or check you and adjust you, it's not, I don't want to suggest, but it's not really you're going to get up and be like, dude, that's not what I'm going for. Right. It's just one of those, yeah, we just got things in line now. You're going to go heal and you're going to go do stuff, but it's a process. It's like braces, and it's like, okay, it's animal chiropractic and pediatric. And what's the difference between animals and pediatric that are different than adults?
There's no belief there.
There's no educated. Yeah, right, Does that make sense? So like, you adjust a horse and it's an ornery thing. When a chiropractor gets done doing their thing, the horse will like follow you. It's sensing that there was something very good about you, and it will stay by your side. And when you do an infant, the infant's not like, I read an article in the New York Times that chiropractors are quacks, and you have, the infant's like, how much is this going to cost? No, the infant's just expressing whatever their innate is doing. And then you go ahead and open that up, and it just is an full expression of what's already going on inside. They have a bowel movement, and they've been, or they're...
It happens with my kids all the time when they get adjusted as babies.
Right? And it's like, boom, and it's like, oh... Yep. It could be that immediate in an adult, but it's so hard because we've held on to what's happened to us in the past. We love those cycles. We like holding on. We love our identities. We love what they labeled us for, because if we don't have that label, who are we, right? And we don't have anything. And it's better to hold on to this shit label than go figure out who I am.
Yeah, I think it's, what was it, the Big Leap or Taking the Leap by Gay Hendricks. Mm-hmm. And he talks about that cycle that a lot of us stay in, you know, where it's like you're so in tune with being in a negative state that, like, when things in your life are so good and your body's feeling great or whatever, somehow, some way you manage to sabotage it.
Yep.
Why? Well, because you're wiring yourself to be negative constantly. And if you become aware of it, then you can be like, you know what? Like, I'm going to promote wellness.
Right.
When I feel good, I want to feel even better. I'm going to stay with that instead of like reverting back.
Right.
And I think, like we talked about what happened last night, that was another example for me to be like, I can choose to send me down this terrible negative path, or I can choose to be like, this is a lesson for me.
Yeah.
It's a learn for me. Okay. And I'm not going to allow myself to go down that road. I'm going to process the emotions that I need to process from it. And then I'm moving on, right back on track, you know?
You know what's cool is, and I do this now, and anytime I bumped into a chick at the beach, like bumped into some, do you now, or whatever the event was, do you like, what am I learning from this?
Totally.
Yeah, and I immediately
100%.
go there.
Yeah.
And it's a great place because I feel like if you have that enough, I mean, and we act on it, like, what did I learn from this? We should be just a better human being for the next event or whatever it is, right? Like, what did this girl teach me last night? I don't know. I'm gonna figure it out. Or what does a patient come in that it first rubs me the wrong way? Well, hold on. My goal is to enable and empower and like, all right, and I'm a reminder. I wonder if I could flip this person right here because they're so holding on to those commercials and they're so holding on.
Yeah.
All right, here's the challenge. They checked my license to make sure I'm legal. That's not the person you want to have in here, but I'm like, they're coming from something, right? Like, and then sure enough, you flip them and they're your favorite, best client, right? Like, or they're your best. And I'm just always looking in like, okay, you're not random. What could you teach me right now? What is this event teaching me?
It's a trip, man. Like I think I spent a lot of time in the past in a judgment state.
Yeah.
Like judging people, being like, dude, like just raise your vibe, bro. You know, like fuck, you know, and like, and I was judging a lot, but I am coming from that place now where it's like, you know what? What can I learn from this? Right. What are they trying to teach me? What is happening here? Is it like life's happening, you know, for me, not to me. Right. You know, it's like, so nothing is like, almost like everything's in divine order. Yeah. Everything is divinely ordered, dude. The way it's happening is exactly the way it's intended to happen. Right. You know, and I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. And I spent so many years being my diagnosis. Yeah. Being the guy that, you know, I've had 6 back surgeries and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it almost becomes like a rehearsed like theme that I would like just keep repeating. Yeah. And that's why I kept having this strong pull to get away from that. And I was like, dude, I got to change the podcast name. It was called My Backstory, it's like a play on words, but I was like, dude, I got to change it. And part of that pull, I think, was because I wanted to let go of that old story. It's like, it's a part of my story. That's cool and all. I get it. But it's not, it's just a piece of the puzzle. That's brilliant, like, man. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to change it to Getting Real, because I wanted to, like, I found, like, I went to that first men's retreat and I had so much judgment and I had so much like, dude, who are these hippies going to be that I'm hanging out with? Yeah. Like, what is this all about? And I even shared this with my mentor. I was like, listen, man, like, I came to that retreat and had a bunch of dudes that were ex-FBI and deputies and things like that, having an exit strategy to get me out of there should it suck really bad. And he's like, are you serious? And I was like, absolutely. I had like one of them, their daughter owns like a restaurant in town and she was on standby. Her dad was on standby. My buddy was on standby. So all these people were like willing to rescue me should it like be terrible. And he's like, I really honor the fact that like you were practicing self-care by doing that, because it was like, yeah, you want to make sure you were safe. Right. But I showed up and it was like such acceptance and love and like such a lack of judgment. And then I felt like such a prick that I showed up with this intention of like being such a judgy asshole that I immediately like dropped the act. I dropped all of that and was like, you know what? Like, I'm here. I'm showing up and I'm here, you know? And I bought this necklace that I wear, the Labradorite. And I bought it for my wife actually. And I brought it home and my son and I bought it in Seattle. And she's like, she wasn't wearing it. So I was like, dude, you gonna wear that? And she's like, well, why don't you try it on? You're always wearing blue. Like, maybe it'll look good on you. So I tried it on and I was like, it looks kind of good. She's like, yeah, it does. And I was like, I just never gave it back. So I kept it. But like, I walked downstairs one day and I had like linen pants on and, you know, I was just chilling, you know, and my son's like, Dad, are you turning into a hippie? I was like, totally, man. Absolutely.
Maybe they knew something.
Yeah, for sure. And then he was like, oh, please don't. Because he was used to like the grunt style shirts and, you know, American flags and whatever. And I'm not knocking that. It's just it's just not my vibe. You know, it's not where I want to be. Right. And so he's like, please don't. And I was like, it's all good, man. I'm going to teach you something. It's all good. Right. So not 3 days later, he comes up to me and says, hey, Dad, can I wear your necklace to school?
Outstanding. And
I was like, no, because it's a weekend and I'm not going to have you this weekend. I don't want it to get lost. But maybe I'll get you your own. So I went to this second retreat. And when I got back, I went and bought him his own Labradorite necklace and I gave him that. And I had all these amends to make to him as a dad. Like I had failed him. Like I was failing him from a place of I wasn't allowing him to feel even. You know what I mean? Like my wounding and my stuff that I was dealing with, part of what was coming up for me was like, dude, I had lost the ability to feel. I wasn't feeling anymore. I was always in my analytical brain thinking and this and that, and the world was just terrible and we're going to hell in a handbasket, and I wasn't feeling any of those emotions. So I went to my son, and like, who's the most kind, gentle, amazing, loving kid ever. Like, I got so lucky with him. Like, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Resilient and awesome. And I said, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry that I haven't allowed you to express like who you really are. And I will never do that to you again, man. I will never put my baggage onto you. And moving forward, like, you can feel however you want to feel, and I'll honor those feelings. Because I don't want you to be a 37-year-old dude like me, just now coming to grips with a lot of these things.
Sure.
And we both cried, you know, and that's when I gave him the necklace, and it was awesome, man. It was such a good moment.
Dude, so I think what you just said doesn't happen. I know I didn't have that. Like, our parents never admitted fault ever. They never seemed real. Like, it always felt like perfection.
When I'm going to become an adult, I'll have it all figured out like they do.
Wait, God. And then you look back and it's like, wait, nobody has it figured out. Like, I wish I could have heard more often that, like, yeah, we fucked up and sorry. How did that make you feel? Or been able to discuss some of that. That was not our childhood, and now I'm having to take that on and deal with it now as part of my training in just being a better person, right? Like, totally. How many like, I hope people out there listening, like, it'd be okay for mom or dad or aunt or uncle or whatever to stop and be like, I'm sorry, that wasn't appropriate for you. That wasn't what I wanted you. I need you to understand, like, I messed up. Yeah. Because a kid then hearing that, I think then shapes their reality as, like, it's okay to mess
you don't
up.
Need to be perfect.
You don't have to be perfect.
It was funny. He got it, like, instantly emotional when I told him, like, I made a lot of mistakes, you know. I failed you as a dad.
That's awesome.
And so he got, like, choked up, like, right away. And of course I did too. And I was like, he's like, you haven't failed me. You've been, like, an amazing dad. And I was like, I understand that, but, like, I need you to understand that, like, moving forward, like, it's going to be completely different. Like, there's things intuitively that you just know. I don't need to ride you about things. I don't need to I mean, there's a part of being a dad that, like, I need to guide you and make sure you don't go off into things that are unsafe for you. But you intuitively know how to be an amazing person and an amazing human being. I don't need to ride you about stuff. You're already there, bud.
Yeah.
And so he got it. He picked up what I was putting down, and it changed the dynamic of our relationship. It's completely like a 180.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of healing, I think, in men really opening up to the fact that we're not fucking perfect and we don't have it all figured out.
No.
And that's been huge for me. And that's like, so I went there with the first retreat was with the intention of, like, redefining what I viewed as masculinity. You know, and before it was like, no, I'm the man of the house. I call the shots. The buck stops with me.
Right.
And where'd that come from? Well, my mom was completely emasculating to every man in her life.
Right.
And so were most of the females in my family. And it was like, I was afraid of allowing a female to, like, have that power over me. Yeah. So the minute, like, I felt like my freedom was being encroached upon, I was like, oh no, I'm going to put my foot down and get crazy.
Right.
And I had it all twisted. Like, it was all wrong.
Right.
And so I left that in the forest, you know, and I was like, no, that stays here. Like, that is and we can call it toxic masculinity if we want, but whatever. It was just my view of masculinity was skewed, and I wasn't honoring my wife and the feminine energy that she is. Like, I just wasn't honoring it. And so I changed that. And then the second time around was, my intention was to get rid of, like, the dysfunction in my family. Yeah. Like, stop the cycle, man. Like, stop it. You know what I mean? It stops with you. Totally. And so that was my intention this time. So I came back just like, man, just like kind of mind blown, you know?
It's huge.
Yeah, man. So it's been great. I'm going to ask you a few questions that I've asked everyone that comes on the podcast.
Let's do it.
Keep it going. If you had one person or one book that inspired you the most your entire life, who would that person be, and what would that book be, and why?
Person or book?
Or both.
Or both.
Whatever comes.
So my brother, hands down, Taylor. He was my best friend, born 4 years after me. He's my younger brother, and we were just connected, man. I was telling you earlier, like, same music taste, same sense of humor. Like, he got me. And in the world now, I'm weird. Like, I'm considered weird, and I think it's the greatest compliment anybody could ever give me. So, like, you're a weirdo. I'm like, fuck yeah. Thank you. Yes. I'm doing stuff right. You know what I mean?
Not conforming to your bullshit.
So totally. But he just got me, and he just knew how to also approach me. He knew when to, like, he just, God damn. And there was one thing that I didn't have he had this like damn, like he never elevated. Like I can go from, and people that have dated me, and you're saying that, like where you felt that was threatened and you'd put your foot down and steamroll it, right? Like I for sure do that too. So to the exes that I've gone through, I know you guys have all experienced this, and I'm very aware of it, and I need to acknowledge it and get better at it. But like he just never elevated. He would take in the information, and he was just very, I can be very judgy too when I'm trying to observe characteristics in unhealthy people to then, or symptomatic to help them. So it's not, so I get very picky, and then I'm always asked for advice, and I can come across that I always know it all, but then I'm like, because like some of it is in my wheelhouse, and I'm constantly, and then there's sometimes I'm like, wait, I don't know, like, let's go to this together, or this isn't fixed. I don't know. Like, I don't have the answer for you. And sometimes people are drawn to that. They're like, you admit it. Like, you don't know. I'm like, because I don't, and that's one of the biggest things he taught me just when his life was short-lived. I got him on my arm, a tattoo on my arm that I look on the inside of my arm. His initials, and then the Chinese symbol for brother, and then the year he was born, the day he died, the year he died. And it was 2010, and it was just, when he passed away, it was, I'm trying to express him through me, through how I lived. Like it was an older brother looking up to his younger brother, if that seems strange. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, and then in some of his suicide notes, because he had 4 attempts on his life, and some of them, and there was one, we went to a hotel room because when he would disappear, that was it. And now he took his battery out of his phone, so you can't trace him. He pays a hotel room with cash, so you can't track him. Yeah. And somehow we found him. I forget how it was. And my brother-in-law was the first to get, or him and I were the first to get to the hotel room. And he had barricaded it, and cops and ambulance and everybody else bust the door open. And he's on the bed, and there's blood all over the room. And again, he's not, this may sound graphic, but like when you clean him up, it's just a bunch of gashes on his forearms and his neck and his face, but not the big ones that like doom in. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like just a bunch of feeling, panicking, crying. Like we all have our cuts all over our bodies and blood's all over our room. It just shows up in different ways, right? So, but when we came in, we're assessing the room and going through stuff, and he had a letter, and it was this notebook thing, and it was, why can't I just be like my older brother Tommy, and why can't I have it all figured out, and why, and like him listing this, and I was like, oh my God. And he's like, I wish I could be strong like him. I wish I could because I exude this. I've gotten better now. This was the 2010 version of me, but it was like where that vulnerability and that masculinity was like, just fucking roll it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and by force, by brute force, win everything by force. And I had to win every argument. I had to win. And it was just like, oh God. So if anything, just Taylor John, like just my brother being my brother, it sucks because I wish I could have known this with him living, right? And like taking him out for coffee, or we go out for a surf session, and just, what can you teach me today, or what can we learn together? Like just to go through this life together. He is with me, and I meet him in meditations and stuff like that for sure. And he's come through my dreams, and he's come through certain things, and it's been like pretty awesome. And I'm pretty open and excited when those moments come. But hands down, my brother. And then the book, I would say, I go to The Alchemist, man. I love that book, man. And every time I reread it, it's different, right? It's like a different, and I'm just, and I honestly won't be able to come up with anything right now. It's just one of those things, like I loaned it, it's out. Like every time I get a new one, I give it out. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I go through, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like underlining another passage, and it's just, it's one of those things, like I'm not a big reader. Like I'm a reader of myself in the environments. Like I go out, like my book is me walking down a path, breathing through my nose, getting exhausted, and seeing what flashes in my brain, or fasting and just seeing what, do you know what I mean? Like I feel like those are like a lot of the books to me. And somebody's like, hey, what you're doing is Qigong, or what you're doing is, and I'm like, oh, okay. How'd you come up with that? I just felt like it, and it just seemed that the body should move this way, and that we should breathe this way, and that we should eat this way, and that you never studied any, like, not really, because it all just seemed to kind of be the same thing when they weren't trying to sell whatever their little flair was.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Taylor John and The Alchemist.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's so funny, dude. Like, your brother, you're 42, right?
Yeah.
And I'm 37. So how old's your brother? Your brother would be...
He was born 81, so he would be 38.
Yeah,
right?
so I was born December of 81.
December of 81, he was November 25th.
Yeah, that's right. I'm December 6th. So it's like, it's just funny.
December
dude,
6th
like,
is my other brother's birthday.
Is it really? That's a trip, dude.
But is it? Like, dude, stuff like this, man.
Yeah,
and everyone's like,
trip.
you guys.
Like, one of the first books, dude, like, that I read, like, when I was, like, getting, like, sober and, like, really starting to open up, of, like, letting go of some of the old stories and old baggage, was The Alchemist. So I used to go to this place called the Huntington Library in San Marino. Yeah. And it's absolutely magical there, man. Like, they have this, like, Japanese gardens, and they have, like, just the landscaping is so beautiful.
Sure.
And it's, like, just amazing. So I'd go there, and I wasn't a reader. Like, I just really didn't like to read, but I couldn't put that fucking book down.
Right.
I just loved it so much. So whenever anybody asks me for a recommendation for a book, it is always The Alchemist.
For real?
Always.
That's
dude, we can go through, like, my social media or, like, things that I've responded to, and it's like, oh, do you have a book recommendation? It's like The Alchemist. It's always The Alchemist, dude. And so, like, when you said I was like, dude, that is
Of course it would be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
That's awesome.
You should tell me.
That's awesome.
You answer my next question.
Right. So if you had one lesson that you learned your entire life, like the biggest lesson that you learned that you wish that you could have taught the younger Tommy John, that you didn't have to go through some of the same heartache, what would that lesson be that you'd want to teach somebody else so you can save them that heartache?
Hold on to that 12-year-old. Like hold on to what you valued then, 10, 11, 12, because it was pure. It was before money. It was before the opposite, like attraction to a sex of some kind. It was before status. It was just like, it's basically where I'm at now, but had to go through all this stuff chasing down. Dude, I filled the void and realized it was bottomless, like, with everything. Like, come on. It is the fact that I'm still living here. Like, even some of my buddies, we recollect some of the stuff we did, and it was fairly mild in the grand scheme of what was possible. But I should have died. I should have killed a number of people with DUIs. I should have, been a father to people. Like, I mean, it's just, I should have had all these things happen that didn't. So it's like, what was I chasing? What was I doing? And it was just to literally medicate myself from just feeling reality. Just like binge on the weekend. Go do this, make money. And when you make money, you just get more money. And like, not even doing anything with the money, not even putting it back into myself to reinvest, to grow, or do something with it. It was just make it. Make as much as you can. And like, if I could go, like, that wasn't me at 12. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just wasn't, and I keep saying this, and I did my Tanita body fat scale yesterday, and I do it like once every 3 months just to kind of see. I'm just curious. It's not like I'm pretty stable with like everything, and have been like for the last 15 years. But it says on there like your biological age or whatever it measures you at. It runs bioelectrical impedance. Yep. And it said age 12. And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
That's
like,
awesome.
It's age 12. And I was going to take a picture of it and do a post so like media, but it's like I'm bragging about my metabolism. And it's like, no, that's not. It'd be too hard to explain this in a post, so I'm just going to leave it. That'll be for me. But like, again,
you need to post it now though, because I really feel like it when, and this is something I've struggled with too, where it's like I have an intention of something. It's like, dude, like I want to share that because it's powerful for me. And then I have that inner critic that's like, you know what, I'm not going to post that because people think I'm bragging or whatever. And it's like, no, but your intention was pure.
Right.
Like it was
screw
like,
it. Whatever they do.
Throw it out there.
No, you're right. Now I got to get back on it and get it to do it again.
Totally.
But like, that's it. If I had, and I said this to somebody the other day, I'm like, every time I walk around, I'm like, oh, that smell or that walk or the way the trees are. Oh, this is like when I was in Cresskill at 12 years old, or oh my God, like, oh, fall's coming. Or this is like when I was 12. I'm like, why do I keep going back to 12? Like, why does everything it's always good. Like sun coming through the window onto carpet, I'm laying there. I would do that in my quiet house. I couldn't wait for everybody to be out of the house. I wanted it quiet. I want to be in the sunshine. I want to be like, have my own warm, and I love being outside. I love creeks. I love forests. I love all that. Everything I am now, I figured out, I was discovering that it was right for me. If I could go back, it would be one, to try to find ways to hold on to that and flourish that, and possibly surround people that would help me hold on to that. Do you know what I mean?
Totally, dude.
Now, I'm not regretful of anything. Like, I'm 100% where I am today because of all the stuff that happened. Like, that's awesome. But if I could go back, it'd be talk to that 12-year-old.
Yeah, I used to word that question, like, if you had any regrets, what would it be? And I was like, I gotta change that, because it's more like a life lesson. Like, there was times where before my grandmother died, like, I would go to her and ask her questions like what she regretted like the most in her life, and it wasn't because I wanted to drudge through her past. It was I wanted to use it as an opportunity to learn from her. Like, what can I learn from you? Like, what can I try and, like, instead of repeating the same stuff that maybe you did that caused you heartache, what can I learn from that? I've done the same thing with my wife's grandma. I've done the same thing with her mom. Like, what did you guys regret the most? Like, what did you wish you could have done differently? And it's like, these are our elders, you know what I mean? Like, they have knowledge to share. They have wisdom to share that I don't have yet. And, like, I want to learn from some of that. And I think the other thing for me too is that, like, getting on the new path that I'm on now, I think there's a lot of people in the periphery that are like, oh, look at this guy. You know what I mean? Look at him. You know, let me tell you about what a piece that guy was. You know, it's like, at a certain point, it's like, dude, you're talking to an innocent man. Like, I'm not, who I was then is not who I am today. You know what I mean? And, like, I won't allow anybody to, like, bring me back down to, like, where I was before. And so I caution people that are, like, going down this journey, that are going down a journey of, like, self-discovery. Just understand, like, you're going to be met with a lot of resistance, but a lot of the resistance that you're feeling is the people that are around you that are in pain themselves, that don't want to address it yet. And, like, for me, like, it came, like I said, initially it was like a lot of judgment of, like, look at this, like, what are these people doing? And underneath that, I think there was like a strong urge to help people. Like, let me help you, please let me help you. And they wouldn't let me. It was like, fuck, you know, like, it was a lot of frustration. And now it's more of like, I'm just going to do me. I'm going to stay in my lane, and hopefully, just hopefully, I can be like a magnetic force that really, like, draws people in, so I can show them, like, listen, let me show you where I was. Let me show how much pain I was dealing with and holding on to, and where I am today. Life isn't always going to be easy. That's not what I'm saying. It's going to be hard and challenging, and, like, things are going to come up, but that's what life's all about, you know? And meeting, like, people like you and, like, forming these connections, I think is where it happens. Like, this was not, like, this was divine, like, order. Like, this is exactly as it's intended to be. When Amy came to my house and gave me your book and say, hey, this guy, Dr. Tommy John, you should, like, you know, do you follow him on Instagram? Well, if you don't, you need to. And, like, so she started to tell me, and I was like, oh, interesting. Immediately started following you. I was watching your stuff, and I've done this with all of my podcasts. I don't really want to dive too deep into your Instagram or anybody's, because, like, I feel like it kind of taints my view and, like, kind of what angle I'm going to come into the podcast with. And so I was like, no, I don't want any of those angles. I want to go there with an open heart and an open mind, so I don't know anything. And I'm so glad that I did that with this one. Like, so fucking glad, dude. Like,
and then we knock out 2 hours on the couch before.
Dude, amazing, right? Like, we could talk for, like, probably another 5 hours. Shit. Really good. Super awesome, man. I'm, like, so incredibly, like, honored by the fact that you're willing to come on this podcast and, like, share your story with me. I think, like, what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. And if more people were doing it, like, you wouldn't have you would, like, shut down, like, industry, you know what I mean, as far as, like, pharmaceutical industries and, like, whatever, like, because people are going to wake up to their own intuitive knowledge of, like, dude, like, you're in charge. It's your ship. You know? So thank you, man, on behalf of me and, like, all the other people that are hurting, for the work that you're doing, man.
And right back at you for what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? Because, again, and what you were talking about, we know we're on the right road. A buddy of mine, Drew Henderson, he's a doctor, chiropractor on the East Coast. And he calls every now and then, he checks up on me. And usually things are awesome. Like 99% of the time, I'm like, freaking awesome. Like, what? And he's just like, I was expressing when I was trying to start the business and do some other things, and was getting some pushback on the book and everything else. And he's like, you know, and he's deep south. I feel like when you're on the right track, it's like in video games, when you're going the wrong way and there's no enemies coming out at you, but then you start going the right way, and all the enemies start coming out at you. And I was like, oh yeah. Like, so when we're just being bombarded with the shit storm that is everyone coming at us with, you're doing wrong and getting real's bullshit and your story's bullshit and you're a fraud and I'm this and that and how could I dare take money away and who you're telling me how to parent and all this stuff, right? Yep. That we're on the right track. Or to then tell somebody else, if what they're hearing from us upsets them, stop and listen, because that's something you were supposed to hear.
That's a growth edge,
right? Like, that's it right there. Like, stay in that. Don't just turn it off and switch gears and cancel the. No. Stay in it. Why did it upset you? And dive down that and go down that thing. So, with what I'm doing, with what you're doing, and it is a very lonely world. Like, you have a family, but you know this. Like, you believe in what you're doing and going that route, man. The majority, and there's money against us, and there's ads, and there's just so much coming at to get people to not believe what we're trying to get people to believe in.
Right.
That it does. I get lonely and I get depressed and then it's stuff like this that I'm like, fuck yeah. Or it's a message on Instagram and somebody's like, thank you so much for what you're doing. Like,
oh, dude,
you have no idea how much this meant to me. And they're like, really? I feel like, no, you don't understand. It's usually hate.
Yeah, and it's juice in the tank though when you get that. You know, I shared that with somebody. I was here in San Diego, man, and I was like worked up with anxiety and like, dude, I got to fly to North Carolina right now, and I'm not looking for. I was looking forward to the podcast. I just was like not looking forward to the flight and getting there and all that other anxiety with that. And so I'm sitting there kind of like frantic, and I'm like, dude, you know. And some random dude like taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, I'm like, yeah. And he's like, hey, you're the guy from the My Backstory podcast, huh? I was like, yeah. I was kind of like, let's kind of take it. I was like, whoa, that's weird. He's like, dude, I've been listening to all your podcasts, man. Thank you so much.
Oh, hell
for
yeah.
what you're doing.
Dude, goosebumps.
Dude, I immediately, like, I got kind of like teary-eyed, you know? I was like, dude, wow, thank you, man. You know, like, it made me realize, dude, like, I was on the right track.
Yeah.
You know? It was like, dude, like, you're doing exactly what you're meant to do. And so it kept my juice, you know, like, going, you know? And the other thing, too, that's come up lately was that I had an opportunity to go back to, like, corporate, you know, go back to corporate America and make a lot more money. And, you know, with the podcast, like, I'm not monetizing it yet.
Sure.
You know, it's in the process of getting there. And it's like I've spent a year of, like, investing all of my time with travel and everything else. So it's like, dude, like, financially, we need to figure this out. And so it's like, oh, you can go back to corporate. Like, I don't know if your back's going to hold up. You can't feel your legs. Like, I don't, like, but yeah, I'll just do it if I have to do it, you know? So I talked to my mentor, and he was like, no. Like, you will find a creative path that will, like, generate revenue and generate income because you're on purpose. Like, you are doing exactly what you're intended to do.
Right.
And dude, it was like right away, dude, like, we had that conversation. One of the brothers from the circles reached out to me and said, hey, let's create this course. Let's do this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, wow, dude.
Done.
Wow. Yeah, done. So now I'm actually doing a daily vlog of, like, my fear associated with, like, staying in your discomfort.
Yeah.
I can very easily go back and yeah, there'll be other discomforts that come along with going back to corporate. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if my back can hold up with all that stress and mentally and emotionally and spiritually. But it would take a lot of, like, financial strain away. But it's like, okay, cool. Like, I got rid of the financial strain, but now I've gained all this other minutia bullshit that's going to take me away from my purpose. Yeah. And I'm not willing to do that. And so I'm sitting with that, and I'm sharing every day. Like, so hopefully somebody will hear. Oh yeah. If I decide to share those videos, they'll hear that message and be like, sometimes you're going to be scared as shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But courage is, like, just the willingness to endure it and do it anyway. You know,
in
be
the
like,
face of that.
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely. So anyway, bro.
You're the man.
Dude, thank you so much, man.
I appreciate it.
Dude, this was such a rad podcast, and I can't wait to share it. So if you guys are enjoying this podcast, please go and rate it and subscribe and all that other good stuff, because it really does help. And if you guys are in the San Diego area and you're looking for some healing and you're looking to get an alignment, look no further than Mr. Dr. Tommy John. What's the address here so you can plug it?
11633 Sorrento Valley Road.
There you go, San Diego. And what's the best way for people to connect with you?
So go to drtommyjohn.com, and from there you've got all my social media connects. If you are interested in the book by any means, you can get it through there. But there's also a website called don'tcutmykid.com, and there's a bunch of work that I've been doing on that. But I will get back to you. I get back to people, and they're always baffled. They're like, whoa, I didn't expect you to get back to me on a Sunday. I didn't expect you. It's like, it's all right. Like, we're talking health and healing, and you had questions and uncertainty.
Totally.
Some people abuse it for sure, but
yeah, but I'm totally like shocked. Like when I messaged you, I was like, hey, he's probably not gonna get back to me. Like whatever. I mean, I knew that like Amy met you, but I didn't know what kind of connection that was gonna be. And you're always like, I'm always pleasantly surprised when you get like an actual response. You're like, oh wow, like you responded.
Right.
Cool, we're actually gonna do this.
Hell yeah.
Sweet. Well, thanks again, man. I appreciate you, brother, and thank you for everything you're doing. And I look forward to our crowds continuing to pass each other for sure.
Done.
All right, brother.
Got it.
Later.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Getting Real with Josh Boyer. If you're loving the podcast, please leave a rating and subscribe. You can follow us on all social media platforms and YouTube at gettingreal_. You can also check us out at joshboyer.com.